Good morning and welcome to this special encore presentation of the Opera Diva series. I am Patrick D. McCoy, your host, and welcome to Across the Arts. This is such a special encore presentation as we revisit this interview with acclaimed soprano Christine Brewer. Let's take a listen now.
Today, we are excited to present our second installment of the Opera Diva series. Last, we spent time with soprano Carmen Balthrop, who shared about her career. And just a reminder for those of you in the DC area, be sure to catch her Divas Night Out concert on March the 26th. Today's guest is one of America's preeminent dramatic sopranos. Grammy Award winning soprano Christine Brewer's appearances in opera, concert, and recital are marked with her own unique timbre, at once warm and brilliant, combined with a vibrant personality and emotional honesty, which make her a favorite on the concert stages as well as a sought-after recording artist. Please welcome soprano Christine Brewer. Good afternoon, Ms. Brewer.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm so fine. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking this opportunity to share your career with us today.
Oh, you bet.
Thank you so much. Now I want to talk to you briefly. I understand that you are pretty much well known to be a person of basically modest beginnings and known as a hometown girl. So I want to know, how do you balance between being just Christine Brewer to being Christine Brewer, this Grammy Award-winning opera singer?
Well, I'll tell you, having a child will do that to you. Having a child who always find a way to bring you right back down to earth. I'll give you a little one example. This is many years ago. I made my debut in Vienna singing Missa Solemnis with Sir Neville Mariner conducting, and I was so excited. And I got back to my hotel after the performance and after we'd had dinner. And since there was a 7-hour time difference, I knew that my husband and daughter were home from school then. My husband was a school teacher and she was in elementary school. So I thought, I'll give them a phone call and just share this exciting evening that I've just had. So I called and she answered the phone and I started to say, oh, I just did my concert here and it went really well and we had a lovely dinner. And she goes, Mom, excuse me. We're just getting ready to carve a jack-o'-lantern right now. Could you call us back a little later? And that just put it all in perspective. Carving the jack-o'-lantern took precedence over my Vienna. So that's pretty much how that works.
So when did you discover your general love for opera?
Really, it was I guess relatively late. You would say I grew up in a family where my mother and my brothers and I sang gospel music and spirituals, and my mom sang in a women's trio that did gospel and jazz. And it really wasn't until I went to college and I saw my first opera when I was about probably 17 or 18 years old. We took a field trip to SIU Carbondale in Southern Illinois, and they were doing a performance of Don Giovanni. And that was the first opera I ever saw, and I was just blown away, as you can imagine, So that was really my first experience with opera, of seeing a performance.
Wow. I want to go back to you mentioning when you were growing up that you were singing around the house, singing gospel music and spirituals with your family. I wanted to mention a couple of years ago, well, a good number of years ago, I heard my teacher sing a song cycle by the composer John Carter, and it's called Cantata. And it's based on spirituals, but it's set in such a classical way. And then I discovered that you actually recorded that cycle. How did that come about, you choosing that particular work?
Well, it's been several years ago, the Opera Theater in St. Louis approached me about doing a recording that they would release privately and produce, and we did it in St. Louis. And they thought it would be interesting to do it around a St. Louis theme. You know, the very famous Wagnerian soprano Helen Traubel was from St. Louis, and the title of her autobiography was St. Louis Woman, which was a very wonderful book. If you haven't read it, it's really funny. She had a great sense of humor, and it's a great book. But anyway, we thought, why not capitalize on St. Louis? So we called the album St. Louis Woman, and I sang songs either about St. Louis or songs that were by St. Louis composers. So as I started doing research for the recording, I came across John Carter, who was born in St. Louis, and I don't think he lived there a long time. He spent actually a lot of his time in Washington, D.C., but I came across his name and found this piece and just fell in love. Of course, I knew the songs, but as you said, the settings are very classical sort of settings, and just really masterful settings, and not so easy for the singer or for the pianist. And so we recorded it for this private recording in St. Louis, and then I started adding it to my recitals, and I sang it in London maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it was recorded for one of the Wigmore live series from Wigmore Hall in London with Roger Vignoles accompanying me, and it was quite a big success. In fact, I have to say, when I'm singing in London, I quite often do American music, and it's always really successful there.
My favorite movement of that cycle has to be the toccata, Ride on King Jesus.
Oh, you know it. That thing just flies, doesn't it?
It does, and the piano part particularly, it makes such a tour de force from the soprano just to really soar. It's certainly a crowd pleaser.
You got that, definitely.
Now, oftentimes when we talk about sopranos and legendary figures in opera, a lot of times, especially when your name is mentioned, it's oftentimes mentioned in the same breath as the famous soprano Birgit Nilsson. What impact did she have on your career?
Well, she was really a wonderful mentor to me. And I met her actually in Washington, D.C. the first time. She was there at Catholic University doing a master class, a couple of master classes. And I was able to get into the class that she taught on German Lieder. And she did an opera class, but that one was full. So I sang in the German Lieder class. And it was actually Evelyn Lear who told me about the class. I had sung for a Met audition, and Evelyn was one of the judges, and it was one of the times I sang and didn't place, and was so disappointed. And Evelyn talked to me afterwards, and she said, I think you are a young dramatic soprano, and I know that Birgit Nilsson is giving some master classes in D.C. in a couple of months, and I just think it would be great for you to get a chance to meet her and sing for her. So I sang, I remember what I sang. I did Hugo Wolf, the Mignon song, Kennst du das Land? And I started singing, and I had only sung one phrase. Now, I'd sat through some of the whole class, and some of the singers who had gotten up prior to me would sing a phrase or two, and she would stop them and basically say, I don't think you're really ready for this. Thank you very much. She didn't mince any words, let's put it that way. And so I sang the first phrase, and she stopped me. And, my life just flashed before my eyes. I thought, what in the world am I doing here, And and she said, where did you come from? And I said, well, I live in a little town near St. Louis, Missouri, and why did you come all this way for this class? And I said, well, Evelyn Lear heard me sing recently and thought that perhaps I should sing for you and that you might be able to, give me some good advice. And she said, who taught you how to sing? And I said, well, mostly my mother. And she said, well, very good. Okay, let's continue on, you know. And so we did the class, and then later that night, I got a call that she wanted to give me a private lesson the next day. So I went in and sang for her for a couple of hours, and we worked together. And then she invited me to, she was doing this really interesting class in a little village called Zuckerberg, Germany, about 6 months later. And she invited me to come. And she only accepted 6 singers from all over the world. We sang, and we actually, it was like having a master class every day. All 6 of us sang to her, and she would critique us and give us pointers, and then we did some auditions while we were there. We did a couple recitals while we were there, and it was I know I was there probably about a month, and I actually took my mother with me, and she got to meet Birgit, and they became good buddies during that period of time. So that's where we first met, and we kept in touch up until she died a couple of years ago. Whenever whenever I had a radio broadcast of, for instance, the first time I sang Isolde in London, it was broadcast on BBC Radio 3, and I got a recording of it, and I sent it to her, and she wrote back, and she always would critique the things that I would send, or we'd speak on the phone, and she would give me advice, and really wonderful advice as I was branching into the bigger repertoire.
So just to mix things up a little bit now, when you meet a young soprano, the propensity these days is basically to hear a sound or kind of copy a sound that one hears. So when you hear a soprano, or you're approached by a young budding soprano who says, I'm a dramatic soprano, I want to sing Wagner, and I'm, say, 21, 22, what kind of advice do you give to them?
Well, I can only go by my own experience, and for me, and certainly what Ms. Nielsen said to me early on when we started working together, I started out singing lots of Mozart, and the beginning of my career in the early 90s, I was singing things like Donna Anna in Giovanni, and the Countess in Marriage of Figaro, and Vitalia in Clemenza, and she said, her advice to me at that time was, as long as you're singing Mozart like this, keep singing it, because you will sing Strauss and Wagner. It will come, but singing the Mozart, especially with the coloratura stuff, will keep your voice, her 2 words, healthy and youthful. And this was always sort of the litmus test for her. When I sang my first immolation scene in Stockholm, she wasn't at the concert, but she listened to the live broadcast and called me on the phone at the stage manager's desk. And when they came to my dressing room and said I had a phone call, I couldn't imagine who even knew I was there. And it was Birgit. And the first thing she said was, well, I wanted to hear your speaking voice, and I wanted to hear, and it still sounds healthy and youthful. Now, let me just tell you, don't ever sing the lower stuff any louder than you sang it tonight. And then she went on with a little critique from the rest of for the performance. But so my advice, this is kind of a long answer. I tend to get long-winded. You might have to just, get the hook out in a minute, Patrick. But,
oh, no, it's quite fine.
But, for me, it was very helpful to keep singing Mozart and Handel and Haydn. And I still do, because I do think that keeps my voice flexible and healthy and youthful. So I do, certainly there are probably young voices who can sing the big stuff early. But from my opinion and from my experience, I think it's better to let that voice mature and grow into those pieces. Also, I find that there are so many things I sing now that if I had tried to sing them 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, I don't think I had the life experience to make those pieces real to me. And well, another instance. when I was a student, I went to a little Methodist college here in Southern Illinois. My voice teacher, Glenn Freiner, used to take students to hear performances in St. Louis with the St. Louis Symphony, and he took me to hear four last songs of Strauss. Heather Harper was singing them. I was probably about 18 years old. Well, of course, I fell in love with the songs, and I went out and purchased the score and brought it to my next voice lesson. And thankfully, I had a voice teacher who, you know, really understood voices, and he said, okay, you're too young to sing these songs now, but you're not too young to study the poems. And so I started studying the poetry of the four last songs, and didn't sing them. I don't think I sang them until I was well into my 30s, late 30s perhaps. And I probably sung those songs more than anything else, and I've recorded them. And I find that as I sing them, as I get older, I have more of a life experience. So not only has my voice changed and matured, but I have changed and I've evolved. And those songs, I think I can bring something different to them now because I've had a different life experience. So I would tell young singers to you know, take your time. Certainly, I sang so much German lieder when I was in college. That also, oh dear, my dog's barking. Somebody's at the door. I'm sorry. That also, I think, got me prepared for singing Wagner and for singing Strauss. Learning to sing these wonderful Hugo Wolf songs and Schubert and Strauss songs, those certainly, there's a journey. And I think sometimes we're tempted to want to rush ahead. And I want to be singing, you know, Brunhilde by the time I'm 23. Well, there's so many other things to do along the way. I think it's better for me to wait. I think it was better for me that I waited.
So if there are any young singers listening, whether you're soprano, alto, tenor, or bass, that was some exceptional advice that Ms. Brewer definitely just gave. Now, tell me something. What would you say your favorite operatic role is?
Oh man, that changes. It changes from almost day to day, year to year. And I know this sounds trite to say, but it's usually whatever I'm working on at the moment. But some of my favorite roles, I can't really pinpoint just one. I sing a lot of Benjamin Britten's operas, and I find the women in his operas are so fascinating to study and to sing. I love singing Ellen Orford in Peter Grimes. I think that's probably one of my favorite operas. And I love singing the part of Queen Elizabeth I in his opera Gloriana. Those are certainly two of my favorite roles. I love singing Leonora in Fidelio. I love singing Isolde. I've sort of listed strong women. There might be a theme there, Patrick. I think there's a theme running through there. But it's so difficult to say. I find different things about each opera and you know, entrance me at the time I'm working on them. And when I repeat a role, quite often I'll find something else that is, you know, intriguing that I maybe missed the first time, or maybe, as I said earlier, through life experience, it means something differently to me. So those are probably the roles that are my favorites. Ariadne, of course, I've sung probably more than any role. I love that opera. I love the little bit of humor that she gets to portray in the prologue, because you know, not too many of the roles I sing are humorous, and I find I think I'm a humorous person, so it's always nice when I get to do something on stage that has some humor involved.
So what's your dog's favorite opera? Because it sounds like he or she has quite some chops.
Oh my God, I've got two dogs. One is a golden retriever, Minnie, and the other one is a little mutt. We call her Macy. They're 9 and 11 years old, and they've been to Santa Fe several times. They love going to, to visit me when we're rehearsing opera outdoors. They'll sometimes come with me to the, rehearsals. They'll sit in the living room right beside the piano when I'm rehearsing, and they never howl or anything, so I think they enjoy it. I hope. I have no choice.
So let's talk about your upcoming recital at the Kennedy Center, sponsored by the Vocal Arts Society of Washington, now called Vocal Arts DC. Tell me about that program.
Well, I'm really excited about this program. I've called it, when I have sung my songs to you, an evening of American music. I'm starting the program with a song cycle by Giancarlo Menotti, and this is his 100th anniversary of his birth this year. And the piece is called Canti della Lontananza, Songs of Absence. There are 7 songs that he wrote the text in Italian and he wrote the music for. He gave these to me, probably in the early mid-90s. We were acquainted, and whenever I was in Scotland, he would invite me to come and visit. And he gave these to me. He had written them for Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, and I think she premiered them in the mid-60s. And he said, I think these would be songs that would be really, really good for you. They're extremely poignant, as you can imagine, songs of absence, songs of lost love, songs of relationships that have not gone well, and they're very, very touching songs. I actually recorded them with another song cycle of his, simply called 5 Songs, a few years ago, and then he invited me to come to, I'd been to the Spoleto Festival in Italy a few times, but he invited me to come for his 95th birthday. So Roger Vignoles and I went, and we did these song cycles, and then I did a couple arias from some of his operas, and he sat on stage, and I sang them to him. So he was on stage for that performance, and it was just a really lovely time. It was the last time I saw him. So I always have a little tug on my heart when I sing these pieces because I know how much he loved them. So we're starting the program with those, and then I'm doing this piece, which I actually sang last year in Washington, D.C., but I think it is a piece, it's new, and it's one of those that I'd like to repeat because I think it's one that audiences probably would, if they did hear it last year, will enjoy hearing it again. It's called Letters from George to Evelyn by the composer Alan Smith. Alan is from Texas. He is the head of the piano department at USC in California, and he's the head of the chamber music program at Tanglewood, and that's where I first met him several years ago. These letters were letters that Lieutenant George Hans wrote to his bride of 1 year, Evelyn, while he was in the service during World War II. So they're love letters, and what I love about them is that you get the glimpse of what he's going through, but you also sense that he's trying to protect her from really knowing just how difficult it is. But he does express his fear a few times as they're preparing for D-Day. He expresses a little bit of his trepidation and makes the comment that, I have to have all this bravado around my men, but there's this inside of me, I wonder, am I really ready for this? He did survive D-Day, but he was killed shortly after that in Germany. And so Alan set the telegram that Evelyn received. That is one of the movements in the piece, and it's set very minimalistically, if that's a word, in a very minimalist way. It's quite moving. The pieces, when I performed them in London last month, in January, and they were very successful, and so I thought it bears repeating these this year. So I'm going to do, that will be our first half. Second half of the program, my accompanist, Craig Rutenberg, will be playing some Virgil Thompson piano settings, and then I'm going to sing the last aria the very last words in the opera that Virgil Thompson wrote, The Mother of Us All, which is about Susan B. Anthony. And what a brave woman and what an incredible woman she is. And I just said, I've got to sing this piece because I so admire what she did for women and for those maybe young listeners who maybe haven't studied her in school. She was really responsible for the women's suffrage movement and for women getting the right to vote. Sadly, she died before women actually got the right to vote. She died about 14 years before Amendment 19 was passed. So I find this piece very moving and very empowering. Again, we're back to the strong women, Patrick. There we go. And then I'm singing some of my favorite Charles Ives songs, and I'm ending with some songs that are included on a new recording that just came out this week. They're songs that were sung by some of the great divas of the 40s and 50s and 60s, Kirsten Flagstad, Helen Traubel, St. Louis woman, Eileen Farrell, and Eleanor Steber. And these were songs that they sang in recitals or that they used as encores for recitals. They're American pieces and really pieces that aren't heard much anymore. A lot of them are out of print. And so I've been singing those for the past year in recitals and just recorded them for Hyperion. And I think they're really a nice set to add to the program.
I do want to talk a little bit about Echoes of Nightingales very shortly, but I just got a little a tip from Mr. Brewer, who wants me to ask you about Alice.
Ask me about Alice?
Alice's dog.
Oh! Okay, well, I told you my dogs never howl or never cry, when I'm singing. My coach in St. Louis, Alice Nelson, has this long-haired dachshund, Daisy. And Daisy is about 16 years old now, I think. And whenever I go to work with Alice and we're coaching Wagner or Strauss, Daisy, I'm not kidding you, this is just God's honest truth, she will just lie either on my feet or right beside me, on the right beside me next to the piano while I sing Wagner. And when I start singing Benjamin Britten, however, or any other repertoire, she seems to only like the dramatic German repertoire. She walks away. She doesn't howl, but she just puts her head up and walks away into the other room. It is the funniest thing. So I guess she's a little music critic, and maybe because she's a German dog, she only prefers to hear German repertoire. But this has gone on for 10 or 15 years. It's very funny. So, yeah, that's the story of my friend Alice.
A diva dog.
Yes, she is, and she only likes the dramatic German repertoire.
That is too funny. I do have an excerpt from your new recording, Echoes of Nightingales. I would like to take a moment to play the first track on the disc, and the song is called Sing to Me, Sing by Sydney Homer. This is soprano Christine Brewer, accompanied by Roger Vigneault. And that was soprano. Ms. Brewer, you still there?
I am, yes.
I'm not sure what happened, but for what we heard of the selection, it was wonderful. Now, one thing we always have these technical issues. One thing I really liked about your disc is the time and thought that you put into assembling something that was not just a project per se, but it was also meaningful to you. So was this whole concept all your idea to pay homage to these special encores by these legendary Wagnerian sopranos?
Well, that was primarily the idea, but it was also, for me, it was a tribute to my very first voice teacher, Glenn Freiner, who introduced me to these songs when I was a student in college. And he, as a young man, would go and hear Kirsten Flagstad when she was doing her recital tour around America, and he saved the programs, and he would note, she usually sings some Sibelius songs, maybe some Wagner, the Wesendonck Lieder, maybe some Schubert or Strauss, but she always ended her programs in America with a set of American songs. And so he would purchase these songs, the sheet music, keep them in his file, and he would share them and teach them to his students. He did the same thing when he heard Helen Traubel sing. And again, he would jot down in his program what encores these women would sing, and again, go and purchase the sheet music. And so he had just a treasure trove of these, what I call these gems, these. And the reason I named the album Echoes of Nightingale is because of that first song, Sing to Me Sing, Thou Great Glad-Throated Nightingale. And I thought, well, these women were all nightingales, so these are echoes from their voices. So anyway, it was something I mentioned when Roger and I were recording. We did a Strauss disc for Hyperion, and I just mentioned the idea. Well, they kept pestering me from Hyperion, and when are you going to get the repertoire together? We really want to do this. And so I started singing some of the songs in my recitals. And my dear voice teacher, Glenn, passed away and left me his vocal music files. And so as I started thinking about this project, I started going through the files, and I started pulling out the songs that were so familiar to me from my voice lessons and from my studies. And I felt like Glenn was just there looking over my shoulder as I was choosing the music. And as I said earlier, much of this is out of print now, which is really sad. So I found the songs that I wanted to do to represent these four great singers, and then I sent them to Roger, and we started, paring it down. Okay, let's do this one. How about we try that one? And we came up with this particular set, and I'm so happy about it. And we've been doing these in recitals for the past year, and I thought they would appeal. I was pretty sure they would appeal to the older audience, perhaps people who had heard some of these women sing in their prime. But I've been really overwhelmed by how many of the young people, the university students, the music students in the conservatories, come up to me afterwards and say, oh my gosh, that one song you did by Sidney Homer, or this song by Kramer, now where can I get a copy of that? And I have to tell them they're out of print. So my next project is to see if I can somehow get these pieces perhaps published again, so that some of the young students could start performing them again. I think they're beautiful songs, and we just haven't heard them for many years.
That would be an absolutely wonderful project. I want to take the opportunity to let the listeners know about the recording. The recording, again, is called Echoes of Nightingale by soprano Christine Brewer, accompanied by Roger Vignoles. It's on the Hyperion label. You can pick this recording up if you just go to Amazon.com and just put Christine Brewer or Echoes of Nightingale in the search engine, and that should come up. And it's definitely a wonderful recording. I was so happy I got a note from your publicist to ask me had I gotten the disc. And so I went immediately to my mailbox, and the disc was right there yesterday. And I had to say his timing was perfect. So it was wonderful to have an opportunity to listen to it. It's just such a wonderful collection.
Well, it was funny when we were recording it last December in London. We would do a take of one of the songs, and the producer, who I've worked with many times, he would come on he'd say, "Oh, now that one is my favorite. That is a gem." Okay, so then we do another song. Okay, no, you know what? This one is my favorite now. Really, this one is just so special. And this went on, and we started laughing about it. I said, "You're going to say that about everyone because they are little gems." Many of them were encore pieces, or as I said, they were pieces that these women put, maybe at the end of their recital programs. And so they're just little gems. And so I hope people enjoy it as much as we did when we put it together.
I want to talk about your performance schedule. You've been so gracious, and I know that when we were doing a lot of our corresponding, you had just come off of several performances of Mahler's Eighth Symphony in Amsterdam, and I had a chance to look at your schedule. You have a lot ahead of you coming up.
Yes, I do. A lot of Mahler. This is an anniversary year for Mahler as well, and so a lot of orchestras are putting up Mahler's Eighth Symphony or the Symphony of 1,000. It doesn't get performed a lot because it really is a huge undertaking. It has 8 soloists, 2 full adult choruses, a children's chorus, full orchestra, brass choir off stage. It just really is a thrilling piece, but also very difficult to put together. So we were doing it in Amsterdam with the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra, and it was videotaped for a television broadcast for a later date, and it was recorded for a CD, and then we did 2 performances of it while I was there. But I'm singing Mahler 8 in Beijing this year, Tokyo, Munich, Berlin, Rome. I'm probably forgetting somewhere. And I have a Mahler 2, his Resurrection Symphony, I'm singing here at my hometown orchestra in St. Louis in April. So I'm really looking forward to these upcoming Mahler concerts. But
one of your performances, one of your performances that really struck me was your upcoming appearance later on for the Savannah Music Festival, and I guess it really piqued my interest because one of my dear friends from my hometown of Petersburg, Virginia, where I'm from, Timothy Hall, now lives in Savannah. He's lived there for several years, but he's instrumental in a lot of the musical going on there. So I just wanted to definitely to recognize him. And do you know anything more about the Savannah Music Festival that you're singing on?
Well, I know. That you caught me. I tried to put everything in front of me that I knew you might ask.
That's okay. I was just curious because.
Well, I'm trying to recall. I think I'm singing on that recital. I think I'm singing Wagner's Wesendonck-Lieder in the first part of the program. And that piece, of course, was what he wrote when he was working on Tristan and Isolde. So you hear all of these beautiful themes from that opera throughout this piece that he wrote with the poems from Matilda Wesendonck, who was the wife of one of his patrons, and he was madly in love with her. So they had this unrequited love, and she wrote these beautiful, beautiful poems, and he set them, to the music that we then later hear in Tristan and Isolde. And I think I am also singing some Strauss Lieder in that recital. I'm so sorry I don't hold on. I just
okay.
The website here for the Savannah Music Festival, and I will tell you if they've got my program listed. I hope they do. Yes, okay. I am doing the Wagner. I'm opening with an aria that Birgit Nielsen quite often opened with when she was doing recitals, Divinité die Styx, from Gluck's opera Alceste. I sang Alceste last summer in Santa Fe, another just brilliant, gorgeous opera, and again, another strong woman who gives up her life so that her husband can live. It's one of those age-old stories, behind every great man is a great woman or something like that. Anyway, we're going to open with that aria, which is just like a firecracker, Then we'll do the Wagner Wesendonck Lieder, and then some Strauss Lieder. And then in the program in Savannah, back to earlier when I said how much I love singing Benjamin Britten's operas, I also love singing Benjamin Britten's art songs. And we're going to do his cabaret songs. The poems are by Auden, and they're sort of tongue-in-cheek, very witty, funny, beautiful songs. We're going to do those in this recital, and we are going to do John Carter's cantata in that recital as well. So it'll be a lot of fun. And Craig Rutenberg will be accompanying me in Savannah.
Oh my goodness! Thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking the time to read. I'm so sorry to catch you off guard.
That's okay. This is what is so great about having a computer, and you can just Google something, and there you've got the information. It's perfect. So.
Thank you so much for being so kind. Just going back to opera, when you mentioned about performing the Gluck, what is your interest these days in performing more staged opera?
Well, I'm doing, actually, I have a lot of Britten's Glorianas coming up in the next couple of years, because I also think there's a Britten anniversary of his birth, or I don't know, but anyway, so I'll be doing a role that I sang for the first time in London, and then I sang the 50th anniversary performance of Gloriana in Aldborough, where Britten had his festival, he wrote Gloriana for the coronation of the current Queen Elizabeth II, and it was premiered in London, and so I sang the 50th anniversary of that, and then I did a production in St. Louis at the Opera Theater with Colin Graham directing and Stuart Bedford conducting. These were both men who worked hand in hand with Benjamin Britten, so I always felt when I sang a Britten opera with those two gentlemen, I was really getting, from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And it was a role that I really resonated with me. And what a powerful, brilliant woman Queen Elizabeth I was. And Britten really captures her humanity in this piece. So it's a role I wanted to perform again, and I'll be singing it with the New York City Opera, Los Angeles Opera. I'll be singing it in Norway at the National Opera in Oslo, and I'll be singing in Santa Fe in 2014. So it's a piece I'm really very close to. So I'll be doing several productions of that, and I'm adding to my repertoire this year a role that I thought I probably wouldn't sing. I wasn't sure. I certainly didn't want to sing it early in my career, and that's the role of Turandot. And I know a lot of my friends have said, "Oh, you said you'd never sing that. You didn't think you wanted to do it." But I've started working on it. I'm going to sing it this summer at the Hollywood Bowl with Gustavo Dudamel conducting the LA Philharmonic. And so I'll be doing it in concert first, which is a way I like to do. I did Tristan and Isolde in concert first in London before I did any stage productions of it. So same thing with this piece. So I hope to do some stage productions of Turandot after this performance this summer.
Well, I definitely want to offer my hearty congratulations to you on all of these magnificent accomplishments. You're such a role model to all of us who are in the field of whether it's classical music or just pursuing professional music careers in general. It takes a lot of work, and it just seems like if you really put your heart and soul in it. So I just definitely want to say thank you.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Just as we move towards the end of the interview, I just want to ask a few more questions. I wanted to know, just as we wind down, first of all, when we think about contemporary singers in opera that are singing today, are there any contemporary dramatic sopranos who are singing, maybe colleagues that you have come to admire their work as well?
Oh, there's so many. If I start naming, I'll forget somebody, and then I'll think, oh gosh, I don't want to omit anyone. There's so many wonderful singers whom I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to work with. One I can just say right off the top of my head, I just sang with Stephanie Blythe in this Mahler 8, and we're doing the Verdi Requiem together at the May Festival with James Conlon this spring in a couple months in May. And what a beautiful dramatic mezzo voice, and just a wonderful singer. Michelle DeYoung comes to mind, another wonderful, wonderful singer. We've done a lot of Mahler 2s together. We've done some Mahler 8s together. I'm sure I hate to start listing people.
Well, I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to get an email later from somebody saying you didn't mention me.
Okay, so I'm gonna bail you out. I'll stop
right here. On that one, Patrick.
Okay. Just on a more personal note, I do want to share with you, as I like to share whenever I can. My mentor at home, Jim Peake, he was the minister of music at my church, and I really credit him for really exposing me to a lot of classical music. And one of the major conductors rather, that he exposed me to was Robert Shaw. And the first time that I heard you sing was when you sang the soprano solo in the Regina Coeli by Mascagni. Could you maybe talk about briefly just your experience working with Robert Shaw?
I'd be happy to. I first met Mr. Shaw when I was singing in the St. Louis Symphony Chorus. I was one of the section leaders in the chorus. This was back when I was teaching school and just sort of, getting a start in my career. And he came to St. Louis to conduct Elijah. And he wanted a soprano from the chorus to sing. There's just a little thing from the balcony, in the second half of the piece. And I found out about it the day before he arrived. And so they called me and they said, well, just learn. It's only a page. You'll get to meet with Mr. Shaw, and then he'll put you up in the balcony and he'll practice it and figure out where he wants you to sing it and all that stuff. So that was our first meeting. And then when I really made my career, change and quit teaching and teaching school and really started singing, I did have the opportunity to sing Janacek's Glagolitic Mass with Mr. Shaw and record it. And this would have been, I think, 1991 or 2. And I was just scared out of my mind, as you can imagine. And I will say, it was baptism by fire. And if Marietta Simpson had not been there singing the mezzo part and holding my hand, I probably would have just, packed my bags and come home because I was so nervous. But she had sung with him for a few years before this performance, and she said, now look, Chris, he is really rough on singers the first time they sing with him. So just hang in there. You're going to make it. It's going to be fine. And that was good advice because I did hang in. We did the recording, and it was a big success. And I went on to sing with him right up until the end of his life. We probably, I can't even tell you how many things. We did Elijah together several times. We recorded the Mascagni, and we performed that in Atlanta. We did a lot of Beethoven Missa Solemnis performances. We did a couple at Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., a few in San Diego. We did lots of things. And I have to say, in my scores, especially in the Missa Solemnis, which is such a thrilling piece, but difficult piece to grasp, really not just musically, but psychologically. And there are so many things that Shaw shared with us. I have little notes in my Beethoven score, with RF beside them, different things that he would say throughout the rehearsals. And that were just so profound. He was truly one of the best choral conductors, I think, ever. And I know that other choral conductors hold him up as someone that they, aspired to. And many of them took his seminars that he gave at Carnegie Hall. And he was just brilliant, brilliant man. And I feel so honored that I got to, in my early career, work with him before he passed away. It was great.
That is wonderful. It's such a small world, especially living here in D.C. You had mentioned Marietta Simpson. Well, her sister is Evelyn Simpson Curitan, who is the well-known organist and composer, and she has a lot of wonderful arrangements of spirituals. So I know that you do like to do spirituals, so that might be a composer that you might want to investigate.
Well, Marietta and I have talked about doing a recital together of some spirituals and some of the songs that she grew up singing with her family. I grew up singing with my family. And so we have tossed that idea around, and, it's just a matter of finding a time that we're both available to do something like that. But that would be a lot of fun.
Well, listen, I'm going to be on both of you. Both of you are my Facebook friends.
Okay, you'll be honest on this. No.
I'm going to be on both of you to make that recital happen.
It would be fun, wouldn't it? It would be really great. I love Marietta. I love her. And she is just one of the greatest. She was just so helpful in those early years with Mr. Shaw when I was just, a nervous wreck. And we became very close friends, and I just love her.
I'm sure she'll appreciate that. I want to take a moment, just as we end this time with the wonderful Christine Brewer. I just want to say again, thank you so much for taking this opportunity to speak with the African American voice in classical music, Patrick D. McCoy. And I'm sure that the listeners have gained a great deal of knowledge. I do want to remind everyone, especially in the Washington, D.C. area, about soprano Christine Brewer's recital with Vocal Arts D.C., which will take place March 23rd, 2011, at 7:30 p.m. in the Terrace Theater. She will be accompanied by pianist Craig Rutenberg, and it's an opportunity for you to hear a lot of wonderful music that you may not hear on a regular basis. So make sure you get out and get on the website. You can buy tickets at the Kennedy Center at kennedy-center.org, or you can visit vocalartsdc.org to find out more information about the recital. And just as we leave, I do want to definitely acknowledge Philip Wilder of the 21C Media Group, who has been so helpful to make this interview a reality. And again, Ms. Brewer, I want to thank you so much again for joining us this morning.
Well, it has been my pleasure, and I'll tell you what, this hour just flew by, Patrick. It really, I always get a little nervous, and I think, I hope I can, answer all the questions and come up with something to say, but you made it very easy, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much, and at this time, I'm going to go ahead and allow the listeners to listen to you sing just as we close, When I Have Sung My Songs by Ernest Charles. This is Christine Brewer from her recording Echoes of Nightingales, accompanied by pianist Roger Vigneault.
Thank you all so much for joining me for this encore presentation of the Opera Diva series with soprano Christine Brewer. Wasn't that a lovely conversation? And just to send us on our way, I want to go back and put this for your hearing. This is John Carter's Toccata, sung by Ms. Brewer. Again, thank you all so much. The next offering from my archive will be an interview with none other than Richard Smallwood on my The Celebrity series. But right now, listen to Christine Brewer sing John Carter's Toccata.